Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gripe, the show where I do short, sweet movie reviews of new release movies, plus the one thing that annoyed me the most. And today, I'm going to be talking about the film Brooklyn. This is the little Oscar contender that could. Um, Not a lot of people probably know about this movie. It's a low-budget movie. It didn't get a ton of marketing. It's not meant to be, like the big blockbuster type movie. It didn't get a lot of press. It's just sort of a small film that really actually is quite good. But let me kind of get into what the movie's about to begin with. So the movie takes place in the 1950s. It's about a girl from Ireland, played by Saoirse Ronan. And if you don't know who Saoirse Ronan is, that's a shame because she's a fantastic young actress. She's been in a lot of different things, things like The Lovely Bones, Atonement, Hannah. I mean, she's been in a lot of different things, and she's done a fantastic job in every movie she's been in. And here, she really takes front and center as basically the character Ailish. Irish girl, basically at home. She's working in this, kind of local market for a fairly unpleasant woman, while her sister does accounting for a local manufacturer, basically. And there really isn't a lot of hope for her. Where she is, there's not a lot of work for a girl like her. She can't really get an education. She is interested in, meeting a guy, but there's really not a lot of options there. So basically, her sister speaks with a priest in America and arranges for Ailish to go to America and, start a life there, basically, get an education, get a job. Basically, this priest, who's played by Jim Broadbent, is basically setting up this opportunity for her to come to America and kind of find a life for herself. So, I mean, it's a tough decision. She's leaving behind everything and going to America by herself. She's leaving behind her mom, her sister, and she's just basically getting on a ship and going to the United States. And, and as she crosses to America, she meets a woman who's actually going back from, she went to Ireland she's from Ireland originally. She goes back to visit, but then she goes back to America. And, she's kind of, gives her a few tips, and you can see that Ailish is just like, this kind of heartbreak of having to leave her home, but knowing that there really wasn't anything for her there. So, she gets to America. She's living in a house with who's basically, like a board house run by a woman played by Julie Walters, she does a fantastic job. I don't know why she didn't get an Oscar nomination for it. Maybe it's just because of how little she really is in the movie, but she does a fantastic job. But and she's in this house for girls, and she's getting a job, and you can just the heartbreak is still just there. She's like crushed, and her boss, played by Jessica Paré of Mad Men fame, kind of gives her a little bit of coaching. Is like, you need, in order to really survive, you have to kind of, take control of your own life. She really does, kind of encourage her, as does Jim Broadbent, and really trying to help, push her up, and encourage her. And she goes to this dance, this church dance. She doesn't really want to go, but she does, just, maybe in the off chance of meeting a boy. And when she's there, she meets a guy named Tony, played by Emery Cohen. Emery Cohen, I don't know a lot about him. I haven't seen him in anything else, but he does a great job here as Tony, the Italian who's interested in Irish girls, which, if you know much about the Italians and Irish, there's a little taboo there, which makes it kind of cute. But Tony is just smitten with Ailish. Like, he's just like completely into her. He wants to get to know her, and she's a little hesitant. She doesn't know what to expect from this guy, and her witty Irish charm really kind of, she like throws it at him, and he responds in kind with his Italian charm. And you see this budding romance between the two, and ultimately she goes to school. She starts to learn. She starts to come into her own in America. And a lot of that is, because Tony is there also, like being this loving, supporting person. He's a plumber, but he's got big ambitions. He really is. I mean, he's willing to put aside some of the things that he's, extremely passionate about, like baseball, because he's just so, infatuated with this girl. and their relationship builds. And ultimately, she gets a letter of very bad news from her home. Because throughout the movie, she's got this correspondence going with her sister back in Ireland, and you can see how her letters go from being sad to really joyful to seeing, how there's this like pain on the other side of the world from her sister. But ultimately, a tragedy occurs, and she's forced to go back home. And when she does, before she does, she and Tony actually get married because Tony he's that in love with her that he does not want her to go back to Ireland without knowing that she'll be back, that she's coming back to him. So they get married before they leave, or before she leaves. So then she goes back to Ireland, and when she goes back there, she has to deal with this tragedy and but she knows she's got something waiting for her back in. She's going back there really just to handle this, but she's got to go back to America to her husband. And while she's there, she's kind of getting trapped into filling this role that it almost was like created for her. That, she was sent to America just so she could get an education, get some confidence, and sort of have an opportunity so that she could come home and basically fulfill this role. And, everybody sort of just like starts to say, well, we'll get you back to America. Don't worry. But they start to pull her in and to like, you're going to be working for this company. She meets a guy, and they kind of push her into a relationship with this guy played by Donald Gleason, who has been in everything good this year, apparently. So, if you want a good movie, cast Donald Gleason because he's doing a great job. And his character is a good guy. I mean, he's kind of, you don't know a lot about him, but he's honest, and he's, certainly, his interest in her is genuine. He doesn't, it's not just like he wants to. It's not for a fling, or he's not doing it out of some other obligation. He is actually interested in her, and you can see this sort of budding romance between them, but she still has this relationship that she wants to get to back home. And ultimately, what it comes down to almost is like her, facing these kind of expectations of home when she's there, and how she deals with that. And ultimately she returns to America to her husband, and she does so in very steadfast fashion, and saying, this is my home now. You guys sent me here. I found a life for myself, and I'm going back to that life, to my husband, to all this. And just so that's the movie, basically, in a nutshell. There's one big spoiler I didn't give away, but I gave away pretty much the entire plot. As you can see, it's not like a complicated story. It's a pretty straightforward one. Coming of age is a good way that people have described it. I would describe it as a character study, because it is certainly the movie is almost every scene involves Saoirse Ronan. She is just, she is this Ailish character, and she does a phenomenal job. I haven't seen Room yet, so I know that Brie Larson has gotten a lot of Oscar buzz, and I'm sure she's going to win it this weekend. But of all the performances I've seen this year from actresses, Saoirse Ronan deserves to win something for this role. She just owns it, and she does it so well. She makes it so captivating that you want to, I mean, obviously you want things to go well for her. You want her to grow and to learn, because she's such a charming character, and she can play all the emotions on her face so perfectly, between just this heartbreak of having to go to a new foreign country to live there with these expectations of home. And then when she starts to actually build up that confidence, that almost that same look that was once heartbreak is now confidence, and it's this belief that what she is, she knows what she is, who she is, what she wants in life, all that, which you can't do a story like this without a competent actress, and Saoirse Ronan is by far a competent actress, and she owns this role absolutely. Definitely the highlight of this movie is her. And to be honest, I was just enamored with this movie from the get-go. It's certainly a drama. It does have elements of comedy. Julie Walters is certainly funny. Saoirse Ronan herself has, a pretty, good wit about her. There's a lot of, Emery Cohen, he's pretty funny too. He's kind of a goofy little guy as it is, so, he has some comedy to offer as well. So there's a lot of, comedy in this movie, but it's also, a drama. It feels very Irish. The whole movie feels very Irish, which is a good thing because it's, it kind of gives it that tone where there's humor and sorrow. It sort of takes both sides of that equation of, comedy and drama at the same time without being too goofball, but also not being so heavy that you're just like weighed down, like, completely weighed down. So it really balances that extremely well. And as simple a story as it is, the writing is so well done. It's so captivating. It just grabs your attention from, like I said, from the get-go. I was just enamored with this movie. And I was wondering, is there a point where it's just going to kind of start to slip? And no, there is not a point where it slips. In fact, when the movie ends, I'm like, I wanted more. That's how you know you have a good character study, when you get to the end of it and you really want more of that character. This is certainly one of the best movies I've seen this year, hands down, because and I say that in terms of just like in every way this movie excels. This movie does, it. Some people might see it as a by the numbers movie, but it does so many things well, and it does it that just, it's captivating. It's really captivating, and that's what you want out of a good movie, and which is why it got nominated for Best Picture. It is a fantastic film in every aspect. So what is my key gripe? That's the question, is how do I criticize a movie that I absolutely adored? Um, and it's really hard because realistically there isn't a lot that I can criticize about this movie. I'd say if there's anything I can criticize about this movie, if there is one key gripe, it's that they do kind of wrap things up a little too quickly for me. Um, and you could go either way with that and say that, they needed to wrap it up quickly because you don't want to make it drag on too much. And the ending really is kind of wrapped up in a nice bow. But I mean, in terms of not necessarily the very ending, because the very ending is beautiful. The very ending is heartwarming. But there's a little period toward the end where it just kind of, knocks out these, items really quickly. There's almost like a little twist at the end, and then it's just immediately addressed and then done. It's like, so it does wrap up a couple things very quickly. But the pacing of the movie is so good that, by that time you're just like, I want more. I really do want more. Fantastic movie. Absolutely beautiful film. I loved it. I absolutely love this movie. And personal feelings aside, just in terms of judging this movie based on objective criteria, I would give it a 9.5 because it is that just solid. It is a solid film, all around, and absolutely loved it. One of the best films I've seen this year, absolutely, hands down. So 9.5, that's pretty good rating for, the little movie that could, but it certainly was worth it, all around. Got to give Saoirse Ronan tons of credit for what she did in this film. She absolutely owned this role, and it was beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. I highly recommend Brooklyn. Go see Brooklyn or rent it because it's probably out on DVD by now. So that's my review of Brooklyn, and I will see you next time on Key Gripe.